All right, ready to get started? I am Travis, and I would like to welcome you all to the Lean Startup Circle. We generally start by having a show of hands for people that are already somewhat familiar with Lean and Lean Startup. Okay. Now, how many people this is your first Lean Startup Circle meetup? Awesome, awesome. So it's always a good balance. I remember when this group was about 5 people sitting around a conference room way over there. So we've come a long way. I think that is a good thing, that we still have the kind of repeat offenders as well as newcomers that are interested in the concepts. And tonight was a pretty interesting concept for me. I've been preaching to startups for a while that investors are no longer interested in your ideas. You missed that boat. Now they're investing in scalable models. And I think that that's going to be some of the stuff that we touch on tonight. So we're going to approach Lean from the angle of fundraising this evening. So hope you all will give a warm welcome to Derek and Evan from StartupRunner Capital.
Can you guys hear me okay? Nice. Well, my name is Evan Loomis. My co-founder is Derick Thompson over there. He's a lot cooler than I am. He has long hair and earrings, and I wear Brooks Brothers, and I'm just not that cool. So anyway, I always want to make that disclaimer right up front. Hey, so co-founder of StartupRunner, I founded a business here in town called Treehouse, which is a home improvement store. Has anybody ever driven past it? It's on South Lamar. Before that was an investment banker, got a lot of gray hair prematurely on my head. I'm 35, people think I'm 45, and ran an angel group out of Washington, D.C. Just finished a book that's being published by Harvard called Backed, and I've interviewed hundreds of entrepreneurs on how they raise capital, and wanted to share some of kind of the insights with you today. First off, just to kind of wake me up and wake you guys up, I want to share a little story with you guys. So a couple of years ago, one of my best friends had a bachelor party in Telluride, Colorado. You guys been there? It's amazing. Yeah, it's awesome. So we go up to the very top of the bowl, and it's 14,000 feet up there. And I don't know if it's just the snow or what, but when it's cold, you've got to go, you know? And so my friend named Dave said, I got to go. So we're on this ride called Sea Forever, and Sea Forever literally divides the skiable part of the mountain from the unskiable part. And if you go down the left side, so if I'm skiing like this, then you're going to be okay, you'll live. If you go down the right side, that's bad. And so Dave decided to go down the right side to go find a tree and hide and go to the restaurant. We were all skiing by, we're like, see you later, Dave, we'll see you at the bottom of the mountain, no big deal. This is about noon. Dave skied off, and he immediately fell in the snow up to his ears, about right here. And he's a little bit shorter guy. He's like, I don't know, whatever. I don't need to tell you his height. But so you could just see his face. And he was like screaming for about 4 hours. And you could just see people kind of skiing by really slowly. So he decided that he could not get back up the mountain. Anytime he did, he got deeper in the snow. So he decided to like ski out of it, or at least try to. So he starts going down the backside of the mountain. This is kind of no man's land. He runs into a forest grove, and it's so steep that he ends up kind of falling from tree to tree, like stopping himself. I don't know, have you guys seen the movie Cliffhanger? Do you remember that? So it's like that, okay? He misses one of the trees and skis through this open chute, and one of his skis gets lodged into a rock right on the edge of a cliff. So he's 13,000 feet now. He's come down about 1,000 feet. He's on a cliff. It's a sheer drop off for thousands of feet, and he's stuck. Right now, it's been 6 hours. It's 6 p.m. at night. He's saying prayers. He's doing mountain calisthenics, trying to keep his body warm. You can take it. It's no big deal. And so he remembers like physics, right? So 9.8 meters per second squared. That's how fast objects drop. He throws off one of his skis and he listens. Takes a few seconds until he hears something. He takes off the other, listens, doesn't hear a drop. He knows that the only way out is to like jump off the cliff, and he has no idea where, he can't see the ground. mountain helicopters couldn't reach him. I don't know how he was like calculating in his head, but I got a text from him and it said, I fell off Sea Forever, the ride, and I need help. And so we were all back at the cabin. We're like, where the heck is Dave? So we sent ski patrol out for him. They're like, we can't do anything. So he's either going to like freeze to death or he's going to jump off. And I didn't mention this, but it was Dave's bachelor party. Is that the worst thing in the world? So Dave made the jump. And Dave is not here with us today. He lives in Boone, North Carolina. And he's a wonderful guy. He's one of my best friends. It's Derek's brother. It's Derek's older brother, actually. So anyway, I was kind of thinking about this, and fundraising is a little bit like Dave's journey down the mountain. It's ridiculously hard. And I'm sure it sounds like a lot of you guys have already raised money. You're in the process of raising money. I don't know what your story is right now, but it's one of the toughest journeys I think you can do, period. So kind of metaphorically, some of you guys are on the edge, about to make the jump. Can't really see where you're going to land. Some of you guys are like midair, screaming, going down the fundraising mountain. And some of you guys have like stuck it and landed lots of cash, and you've done it. I like this skiing thing because it's really scary. But anyway. So I think one of the most helpful things is, it's okay with you guys, I'm going to stay at a little bit of a high level here on fundraising, and we can jump into some of the brass tactics if you guys would like. We've got a group that's kind of all over the place. I didn't want to jump into something that's a little too, that would be foreign to some of you guys who are unfamiliar with fundraising. So I'm going to share my journey on getting funding with Treehouse, and share a couple of lessons that I learned along the way that I think you guys will be able to see your story through. And if this is boring, or you're like, speed up, just do one of these things. My sole goal here is to be helpful and see a lot of ventures in Austin get funding and get off the ground. So that's my aim. Anyway, we doing okay so far? Not boring you to death? Good. So every business starts off kind of on the back of a napkin. And this is my napkin. I just scribbled in some names. I was at a bar, hanging out with some friends, and I was like, wouldn't it be cool if we had a green home improvement store? And I was hanging out with one of my best friends in Boulder, Colorado, drinking nitro beer. And we just had this amazing vision for a green home improvement store. It was a long time ago. And we're like, I can do this, blah, blah, blah. And this is kind of the vision that we had. Is like, kind of not necessarily a big box, but close to. And so right after we kind of have this, every single one of you guys have had like the entrepreneur epiphany, I'm assuming, or at least you're just kind of exploring this idea of entrepreneurship. But when you do, you get obsessed, and you know what that obsession feels like, right? So I immediately called like 25 of my closest friends, and I was like, hey dude, what do you think about a Whole Foods version of Home Depot? Is that the coolest thing in the world? And half of my friends are like, dude, that's awesome. Half of them are like, how the heck are you going to raise that much money to launch a retail store? You know what I mean? This is 2008, so we had like a really bad housing crisis at the time, so it seemed extra bad. A friend of mine helped organize my first like investor pitch just to give me feedback on the idea, and we had 3 people come. The founder of Mucinex, who was a billionaire. He'd sold Mucinex for a lot of money. Miss Oklahoma, which was really disturbing because half the time I was like, stop. I can't look at that side of the table, And then the inventor of the marshmallow cannon. And I thought I was the man. I was like, this is amazing. I'm really doing it, guys. So during the pitch, got together. I created the best pitch book that I could, and gave it. And it was just rancid. All the investors were like not making eye contact when I was pitching my amazing idea. And the only feedback that I got in the business was, you look terrible. You need to fix your wardrobe. And here's $3,000 to go to Nordstrom's and fix it. And I was just like, are you serious? It's that bad. Anyway, so trust me, that's worse than any of you guys have ever done. So be encouraged. Lesson number 1 of my journey was just to create a really badass pitch deck. This is the pre-funding, pre-product. This is the best place to like test and validate a lot of your assumptions with people, with high net worth investors, with just really interesting people. I'm going to give you a couple of things about pitch decks. I'm going to show you some ones that, so you guys know what pitch decks are. Don't need to go into this too much. Correct, great. It's like a visual business plan, but better. So if I were an entrepreneur and I came to you guys as investors and I showed this to you, what would you think? Would you take me seriously? Why? Why would you not take me seriously?
I can't read it.
Well, you certainly can't read it from sitting right there, but anyway.
It's not clear.
Yeah, it's not clear,
Precise.
but it's beautiful. This is my industry, you know what I mean? How about this? These are deals in Austin, by the way, and so I'm kind of hoping this isn't being recorded because I'm gonna get in trouble. I just took them from entrepreneurs that sent me deals. This is a beautiful vision. By the way, this company just raised a ton of money, but this was their first foray into fundraising and they couldn't raise a thing. They had a vision problem. Okay, so this is different. There's a group of entrepreneurs out of LA that are trying to create an airline company. Pretty risky, right? They're not going to do this to explain their vision. They're doing this. Oh, you can fly for $1,000 a month. It was clean, it was crisp, they raised millions of dollars. It was provocative. It invited investors or whoever they were pitching to ask questions. This is how they show their financial slide. Here's a toy company that's raised about $10 million called Tegu. Again, no bullet points. Here's a local beer company called Austin Eastsiders that's raised quite a bit of money as well. Again, you guys get the drift. So 2 things as you think about your pitch deck, and this is the big lesson for me because the only feedback I got was fix my wardrobe. But try not to use bullet points. You might as well be like flicking your audience off if you use bullet points. And it's great if you can understand what the slide is attempting to say in like 3 seconds. So if you're just showing someone your pitch deck, ask your friend, do you understand it after 3 seconds? That's usually a pretty good indicator on like how sticky your slides are. Cool? All right. So again, sharing your idea, getting it on paper is the best way to like build, measure, learn, pre-funding, pre-product. The second thing on the journey, because Miss Oklahoma and the inventor of the marshmallow cannon did not want to invest in my deal, that means I needed to go on like a roadshow and start meeting with lots of investors. And I want to share a little bit about that journey. So part of it is, that's Michael Douglas, by the way, smoking a cigar. That's who I think in my head of as a high net worth investor. But part of it was like, I needed to know who my targets were. These are 5, there are a lot more than this, but these are the primary ones. You've got angel investors, of course, accelerators, venture capital firms, angel groups, and friends and family. The majority of funding in the United States is done by friends and family, like the vast majority. The other part of it is like angel investors take up a big chunk as well, and then VC. Angels and VCs are about tied at about 20 billion apiece, year in and year out. Friends and family investors do about 40 billion a year in funding, which is a lot. Just to give you guys some context. So don't feel like if you have an idea that isn't ready for the big times, it's not a good idea. You can probably get some funding from friends and family if it's good. So for me, I knew that I needed to go for angel investors. VCs would never put money into like an early stage retail deal. So I just focused on the targets that I thought would be high likelihood. One of the problems that a lot of startup founders get into is they'll try to raise money from the wrong targets. They'll think that it's glamorous going and meeting with the VCs, and the VC is never going to invest in your deal, and it's just a huge waste of time. So again, in these meetings with people, like listen to what you're hearing back and feedback, and focus on the right kind of people. The other thing I wanted to mention here is getting access to people is not hard. Access is easy. Making friends is hard, or getting people interested in your deal is hard, okay? I can give each one of you guys a list of the 6,000 wealthiest Americans right now. Full contact information. This is what this is. I just took a screenshot from my Excel file. And it will not do anything for your venture getting funded. So like some of you guys may have this idea, well, if I just knew more investors, or if I just had a list of who I could talk to, then my deal would get funded. That's probably not the case. I had this list when I was getting funded, and nobody cared, nobody wanted to fund it. So again, happy to share this list with you guys. I'm sure all of you want it, but you're not taking my advice that you don't need it anyway. So knowing your targets, that's lesson number 2. So the question for me was, how the heck am I going to raise enough money? I needed $8.5 million. How am I going to talk to enough angels to get there? I mean, that's ridiculous, right? It is the worst housing crisis in the world. And so I think this stuck with me. And even if I fail, this is a really good ethic, I think, for like life and your business, because you guys may fail. Like, the odds are really against you. 90% of you in your attempt to raise money will fail. That's just a fact. That's statistic. I hope after this talk we can maybe have like 80-20 or something like that, which would be a huge win for me. So this is foundational. Raising friends, not cash. Successful entrepreneurs raise friends, not cash. And this is like an overall mindset that I would encourage each of you to have when you walk into investor meetings. Either you're looking at the investor as someone who is like a facilitator of some good, meaning money, for you, and it's very transactional, it's very about me, or you walk into a meeting actually being genuinely interested in the other person, possibly helping them out on their own journey, and making a friend in the process. So one of the problems that a lot of early stage entrepreneurs have when they're meeting with high net worth investors, VCs, or whatever, is they think it's all about them. They come in the meeting, coming in hot, they come there and they pitch, they land their pitch, and nobody cares. Because the entrepreneur fundamentally had a warped view, or a very transactional view, of who the person was across the table. And so the most helpful thing for me is, I was like, if I walked into a meeting and I got a friend, I was successful. It was easy. It's great. We can all be kind and courteous and good listeners to people. That's not hard. If I came in there and I pushed my agenda a little too hard, and the investor in particular was like, what the heck? I didn't make a friend, and I certainly didn't get investment. And so if you get one right, you might have a chance at the other. That's kind of what I'm saying there. This is what we read in literature. I think this is why it's confusing for us. We read books like Make Your Contacts Count, Network Like a Pro, The Masters of Networking, Dig Your Well Before You're Thirsty. And there's a lot of books out there, but basically they're either making a utility of the investor, or they're actually making a person of the investor. And so have the mindset that this is a wonderful human being that you should honor, listen to, and like give back to if possible. Which is really hard to do when you're raising money, because you're like, dude, I just need funding. Anyway. So how do you know if you have the right mindset when you're walking in the investor meetings? You know you have the right mindset when people start introducing you to their friends, and your network and your Rolodex get bigger and bigger. That's a really good indicator. You know you don't have the right mindset when email intros dry up, when it becomes awkward with people, when friends don't want to share their other friends with you. Like, that's the best indicator that you've got a messed up mindset. If you just want to kind of put a pulse on where you are in your own fundraising process. Does this make sense? Helpful? Okay. So, second to last thing here, increase your luck surface area. One of the best things about organizations like Capital Factory and accelerators at large is that they actually just give you a ton of new friends that you never know, that you didn't know before. And so your luck surface area is massively increased really quickly. So probability on getting funding, a lot of times entrepreneurs just don't get funding because they've got a math problem, right? Their luck surface area isn't big enough. And so they don't meet the right person, or they're not as vigorous as they need to about following up with people and that kind of thing. So the framework that I like to provide here is bridge, build, delight, and invite. And when entrepreneurs come to me and they're like, hey, man, I've been on a roadshow for 3 months. It's miserable. My wife thinks I'm an idiot. I don't know if I'm gonna make it. The breakdown of what is going wrong on their fundraising process is probably happening here. And I'll explain what I mean in a second. Bridge is introductions. So you get bridged to somebody else by a mutual friend or another investor or somebody like that. Build is you build a relationship with the investor or the person you're meeting with. delight the investor, do something kind of unexpected. And so a lot of times what people do is just send like a really short email afterwards or something. Like, don't do that. Write them a handwritten note or buy them a gift. Like, do something to kind of break out of the milieu, because these investors are meeting with hundreds of entrepreneurs over the course of a month. So you want to be kind of top of mind, and then invite them in a way onto your journey in a way that's appropriate. So I'll kind of break this down in a second. Have you guys ever logged into LinkedIn Labs and took a screenshot or looked at your social graph before? Anybody? That's amazing. Okay, you have? Was it kind of cool? Okay, well, please do that. Like LinkedIn Labs, just Google LinkedIn Labs and social graph, and you can map out your whole social graph, and it'll look something like this. All right, so the person is in the middle here. The clusters that are kind of multicolored are sets of friendships. So you can think of one of like college friends, one of work friends, one of like high school friends in this case. This will make sense in a second. These are how many friends this person has in their life. Whoa. I want to be her friend. Just kidding. But this person has a lot more friends. Who has the bigger lug surface area? Like if you were to put money on one of these people, who do you think would actually raise the money?
Mel.
Excuse me?
Melanie. Yeah,
Melanie will. Exactly. Good eyes. I don't know Melanie Swan. Please don't make friends with her. I'm using this without permission. So here's the thing about like social theory, social graphs. This is really important, guys. You want to both, on a roadshow, increase the diversity and complexity of relationships, and also the quantity. So it's not just enough to like go make a lot more friends with old high school friends. The person who's going to raise money here is going to be the top right quadrant. High diversity, high quantity. This, when you start off on a roadshow, like you're at A, which is the little guy over here. And over the course of time and meeting people, bridge, build, delight, invite, following up with people, you'll end up at E if you do the right thing. And these people, they get from A to E, end up raising money. So sometimes I just think visuals are helpful, so we're not just talking about relationships amorphously. Like this is very, very like palatable. You can see it growing over time. So back here. So bridge is the first one. You need introductions. Build your social graph, increase your lux surface area by being kind, by following up with people, making a lot of friends, both diversity and quantity. Build a relationship with people. Kind of going to what I was saying to you earlier about like the right mindset of having with an investor. I had this story when I was in New York City meeting with a billionaire named Mo. He invited me to his house off Park Avenue. I was really intimidated. I don't come from a wealthy family at all. And I walked into his house and it looked like the Harvard Library. I mean, no joke. It was amazing. And so I was trying to make small talk, and I was like, "Hey, did you get those paintings nearby?" And he said, "No, those are Rembrandts." And I was like, "I know who Rembrandt is." Like, I'm a moron. Okay. Well, give me your money. I'm just kidding. I didn't say that. I immediately kind of got insecure. I started playing with this huge Hungarian dog. It kept dropping this like slimy tennis ball in my lap during the presentation. It was one of the worst experiences of my life. I got really flustered. And I was safe when I was talking about my deal, Treehouse. So I pulled out my deck from my backpack, and I was like, "Here it is, Mo. Let's talk about Treehouse. That's why we're here, right?" About 5 minutes into the presentation, I was checking his body language, and he was kind of looking out the window at, whatever. He was just thinking about his belly, or I don't know what he was doing, but I could tell I'd lost him completely. So I decided to do something I'd never done before. I put up the book. I put it back in my bag, kind of awkwardly and almost in haste. And I said, "Mo, can we just not talk about Treehouse anymore?" He said, "Good, because I was about to ask you to leave my house. You dishonored me, and now we can talk. So what do you want to talk about?" I was like, "Well, let's just talk about your dog." You know what I mean? So sometimes building doesn't look like what you think it is going in. It's like the golden rule, like treat others how you want to be treated. Like if they don't want to talk about your deal, don't talk about it. There's no reason when you're building a friendship to try to like play on your own terms. So just be aware of that. If you want to get good at this, take improv classes. Goldman Sachs, lot of the big, amazing firms that we're all familiar with do improv. Like, if you want to build your awareness and your overall like continence with high net worth investors, take improv. There's some really good places here in Austin that teach it. So, two more things here. Delight somebody with something unexpected. I would always follow up. I know handwriting is a lost craft in our digital age, but I assure you, it is the very best form of communication if you're trying to break through the clutter with somebody. Go to crane.com, get some nice looking stuff, write the letter, postmark it, get it done. This is a lost art, and it's really, really valuable for entrepreneurs. If anything, you don't raise money, it's just courteous, and it's the right thing to do, in my opinion. I sent one investor, this is a little risky, I knew his anniversary was coming up, I sent him a bottle of champagne in the Maldives, and the investor texted me from the deal and said, hey, because you're so thoughtful, I'm in for $250,000. I was like, whoa, that was really nice. I wasn't expecting that, but so delight people with something unexpected. Make that be top of mind when you walk out of the meeting. Give to their favorite charity. Who cares if they don't ever respond? Just do something out of the norm. Do not send an email. Do send an email, and I think there's the right way to do that, but do it only after you've done one of these other things, okay? Invite. There are a lot of ways to ask for money. The very best way is to have the other person ask you to kind of give you an invitation to ask for money. Like, if I'm an investor and I say, whoa, this is amazing, I want in. What do I need to do? Like, that's a great invitation, correct? Sometimes investors want you to ask. There's a lot of ways to do that. Half of these are jokes, but you can get the picture. I think sometimes if you're new to an investor, you can like test the water. Hey, so if we keep with this momentum that we're building, you know that the traction's amazing, blah blah blah. Would you be interested down the road? Test the water. Cool guy. I'm a cool guy. Actually, that's really stupid, but I'll print this off. We'll give it to you guys. The best one is momentum. If you actually have real traction and you can like tell a compelling story, it's like, ship's leaving, let's go. I want you on board. One of the keys to asking for money is this. When you ask for money, there's usually water on the table. And I don't know why this is true, but I think it's true. And this is my theory, and so tell me I'm crazy. But after you ask for like $1 million, say, I want you in for $1 million. Don't say anything else, because every part of your body wants to make it awkward and like fill in the void with like, I'm gonna make you lots of money, you know, or whatever. Just take a sip of water. It's a great way to like train your body to like let it linger, let the investor respond. Anyway, last thing here, raising money takes a lot of grit. It's a lot of this stuff. You need to adopt the policy of no coffee left behind act in your life. Just do it. Just drink lots of coffee. By the end of the day, you'll be really jittery and it's kind of fun. This is the math again. So some of you guys have math problems. It's really hard to get introduced to 100 investors. I mean, it's hard to get introduced to 5 investors. But the people who succeed, think about it as they're raising friends, not cash, so they get introduced to lots of people, and this math equation becomes real easy, trust me. Like, I don't have any high net worth friends, and over the course of my roadshow, we ended up raising about $8.5 million from over 50 high net worth investors. So it can be done. I'm not a pro at it. I've made a ton of stupid mistakes, like the Mo story that I told you about. But the most important thing here is to make it easy for people to kind of go down the funnel. This is just like any other sales funnel, guys. It just happens to be a little bit more messy because these targets, these high net worth investors that you're trying to get to are dodgy, they're hard to reach. There's tons of gatekeepers that are blocking you from getting their attention, all that kind of stuff. But it can be done. And that's it. So I guess we can open up for some questions, and happy to answer anything or dive back into something that we discussed. But again, just want to be helpful. So,
what are your thoughts on crowdfunding?
You know what? I should have had that on there. It's great for some businesses. I think if you're experimental and you're a product company, crowdfunding is a great way to like A/B test your new deal before you actually go out and raise money for it, like Kickstarter or some of the others, Indiegogo, WeFunder, Crowdfunder. So I'm a big fan. I think it's awesome. I think it's one of the leanest ways to like test and validate your idea. Yep.
Hey, without knowing any high net worth investors, how did you get the ball rolling? How did you get started when you went on the road trip like this? What did you do?
Well, you don't need to know a high net worth investor to get introduced to one. I don't know what's your name?
Jimmy.
Jimmy. Okay. So
I don't have a story yet.
that's not true. That's not true. We need to hang out after this and we'll create a story. I'm just kidding. We'll go crazy, Jimmy. All right. So in the case of Jimmy, a lot of people feel like that, and the fact is, like when I started mine, the 10 people that I thought might invest all said no, and I was about to throw in the towel. I was like, well, I don't know anybody, you know? But you just keep talking to folks, like day in and day out, and you may fail. I mean, the odds are against you, but I think if you can push through and actually like pursue friendship and look people in the eye, tell them about your amazing journey, have something that's clean, they'll share their friends with you. So you know one person, Jimmy, and either that person is going to listen to you and say, you know, I don't think you're worth it to introduce you to my friends, or they're going to say, Jimmy, I want to introduce you to 3 people, and we'll set up coffee next week for them because they're awesome and they can invest in this type of deal. So it's usually a good bellwether. That's like at the very beginning of a roadshow when you're bridging to all these people. That's where a lot of breakdown happens. If people just don't like you, they're not going to introduce you to their friends. Fact is, so. Yep.
So when you use those sort of segues into the ask, which you had in that slide, what do you find as the typical response, or you know, what is the range of responses? Do you get yeah, I'm in, or is there typically a well, I need to talk to so and so first?
This is why you take improv classes, because it's different every time. And if you're properly reading the body language of the person across from you, you'll know how to like engage them. So if they're doing this, you're just like, okay, I mean, how do we need to communicate here, you know? So it's different every time. If you properly read their body language and what they're saying to you, you'll have a pretty good indication of their level of interest. If they're checked out, if they're checking their BlackBerry, if they're not asking good questions, you can tell they're just doing this because your mom went to high school with them or something like that. Then at that point, I typically just say, well, would it be okay if I just kept you in the loop on our progress? And if they're like, oh yeah, absolutely. Then I keep in the loop, and then I follow back later and I say, hey, we're raising a round, and would love for you to be a part of it. Can I count you in for 100? Don't have beer when you do that, by the way. That's some good beer. Is that helpful? I don't want to be too, I can't prescribe something here because it's really your level of like emotional intelligence that you develop over a lot of pattern recognition.
Well, I guess I'm asking more about their reactions than how you respond again to their reactions, right? I
mean, I've been said no to hundreds of times, and yes, 50 times. So the no's are, a lot of them leave you in the gray. It's like, I wish you well, good luck, Chuck. And you're not sure what they're saying. Like, do you really care, or are you just trying to get me off your back and not make me feel bad? So I think it's okay for you to like have a verbal contract with them and like, hey, will you be honest with me here? Because I don't want to waste your time and I really want to make this thing amazing. So you create a verbal contract. Will you share with me your candid thoughts on this venture? And they can share. Or even better, you can say, hey, under what circumstances would you invest in a deal like this? If they say yes, they're like, send me the wiring instructions. It's easy. And then you say, well, how much do you want in for? It's better you as the entrepreneur kind of feel them out or give them like a challenge. Like I had one guy and I was like, I want you in for $1 million. It's like, okay. I should have asked for 2. But I didn't know how much he was worth. A good metric is like, think about 1% of their net worth and like ask them for that. Yes?
What do they ask for
Excuse me?
What do they ask for in return?
Good question. Besides equity?
Well, I know, but like how much, that's the kind of question I ask. Like, how do you divvy it up? Your own equity into investors and how much they give you? Just base it on like how much you need?
Yeah, so when, we should talk after because that implicates a longer conversation about your valuation of your company. And so if, for example, if you have a company and you say it's worth $3 million, and you raise $1 million, your pre-money is $3 million, your post-money is $4 million. So if I just raised $1 million, then the investor would own 25% of the company, just in that like simple math. And so that's what they get in return. And they're gonna go through a term sheet with you, which is a legal document, and that's gonna lay out certain terms that are on their $1 million that they own of your business. So you as the founder own 75% and they own 25%, and they'll have certain terms associated with their equity stake in your business. When it gets to that, it's great. You just, and if you're uncomfortable in that area, one of the best things to do is obviously have a lawyer that can handle that for you. Don't try to improv that one. That's one you don't want to improv. Improv everything else, don't improv that. And say, you know what, I'm so glad you're in for $1 million. Can I have my lawyer circle us up on a 3-way call so we can talk about the specifics and just punt if you're not comfortable. So, yes?
At what point when you're developing a plan for what you guys to start the roadshow?
I think it's important to start the roadshow before there's a roadshow. I mean, if you're on an actual roadshow, sometimes that can be an indicator that you're like, you really, really need money. And one of the best like optical things that you can have as an entrepreneur is optionality. You can say no to people if you don't want them on your, cap table. So one of the best things to do, and kind of in the spirit of this talk on build, measure, learn, is just to start talking to people immediately and just getting their feedback. And people will tell you, even before you're raising money, like, wow, this is amazing. Please tell me when you're raising money. And you're like, check, I will. Great meeting you. Send them a gift, handwritten note, follow back with them 4 months later when you're like ready to actually raise money. So start soon. But you don't always have to be asking for money. I mean, if you ask for, it's the old adage, right? You ask for money, you get advice. You ask for advice, you may get money. Ask for lots of advice, you might get money. Yep.
What you see now is that the investors out there want to go very quickly into what are you already producing, what type of revenue should your company bringing in, and at what point are they going to be totally insistent that you be at a certain goal, a certain profitability, whatever? What goals do they have?
Ask them. I mean, the venture capital firms have certain restrictions on what they'll look at. That is their investment strategy, and they're held to it, to their LPs. Angel investors are all over the place, and so I'd encourage you just to ask them specifically, like, hey, what is, tell me what kind of traction you want to see, so I can know at what point you'd be interested in investing. And again, every angel is different, every angel group is different, they're going to be looking for different things, so just figure it out. Yes?
I know you're talking a lot about your interactions with investors. What I was kind of hoping to get a little bit was how to prepare businesses for presenting to investors. So like building the business ahead of time, or how do their, so I'm an accountant, how do their financials need to look, or what are people looking for? I know we kind of touched on that, but I don't know if there's anything else you can say about that.
Yeah. So your lens right now is through kind of the financial lens on what does someone need to have in place financially to present?
So, I'm in accounting and I want to be a consultant helping people start businesses, build businesses,
Sure.
Get ready for financing, that type of thing.
Great. Well, I mean, from the document that you probably need to have in place is a full income statement, balance sheet, cash flow. Investors are mostly going to be interested in cash. Cash is king. With an income statement that clearly lays out what your business is going to do. So I would just show I would show all 3 financial statements, but in terms of like actually just putting something in a pitch deck, I keep it at a high level. If they want to dig in, send them the model. There's nothing to hide. Just send it to them without, with every macro enabled and all that kind of stuff, and say, have a look. I didn't have any of my investors really ask for a financial model. Okay, financial models are in place as kind of like proof positive that you've done your diligence. They're not necessarily like something that investors are going to get excited about and fund. If you've got a really good financial model. And as a former investment banker, I had like an amazing model. I had sensitivity analysis, like 40 ways to Sunday on like the price fluctuations of lumber and stuff like that. And there's like, who cares? That's cool that you can do that, and I don't care. So it's kind of like a GMAT getting into business school. You need to have it, but once you do, it doesn't it doesn't do much for you. It just kind of gets you in the conversation.
Kind of just need to have.
If you came to me and I said, hey, can you show me your financials? And you're like, what? Or I'd be like, okay, this entrepreneur hasn't done their diligence. They don't really understand their business model because they haven't articulated their amazing world-changing idea into something that I can understand, which is numbers. And how do I make money here? How do you make money? All that kind of stuff. Derek may want to talk about this in a little bit, but alongside your financial model is going to be all kinds of metrics that are really helpful to show investors on your cost of acquisition, your retention, your available market, your all that kind of stuff. So, and I'm happy to send you some models that I really like, just to look at. So. Yes.
Did you ever exchange equity in the company for expertise or services versus real hard dollars?
All the time. Yeah.
Like for an attorney, accountant, or what else?
Yeah. When you don't have cash, you get creative. So one of the firms here in Austin called McGarrett Jesse, they're a big branding and design agency. I went and presented Treehouse to them. And they came back and said, hey, we want in for $250,000 on services for equity. And I was like, great. So yeah, you can definitely do that. It can get a little squirrely if you have too many of those folks on board, just honestly. But having a few really strategic partners that like have a stake for services, I think is really helpful. It shows you're, crafty. Yes?
How did you prove your idea? Did you have something going on before making revenue before you actually got investors?
I couldn't.
Right, that's
I couldn't prove it. Unfortunately, this is the curse of a retail company. Like all of you amazing people that have tech ideas, like I wish I could have been you on the roadshow, because at least I could have pointed to something that says, look, we have traction. I was just dancing in front of people, like, doing the whole like Mickey Mouse thing, and it just like, this is going to be amazing and it's going to be awesome. And that was a huge problem for me. Because investors wanted traction. I couldn't provide it because you can't get traction until your thing is built. So I'd have to speak an analogy. I was like, well, Home Depot did this and Whole Foods did this, and can you imagine what it'd be like if the two were merged? You know what I mean? It was kind of confusing. So I had to find really mission critical investors. So I went and talked to the founder of Home Depot. I went and talked to the founder of Container Store, founder of Ace Hardware, a lot of these folks. And once I got them on board, they said, all right, we're going to write a check, let's go. Like that was enough like traction from other investors looking at it to go, okay, we went in on this deal. Because if the founder of Home Depot's on it, like, wow, they're smart people, So I had to pursue a little bit of a different route, unfortunately. Yes?
So if you didn't prove the concept, what percentage did you give away for your seed fund if you round it?
Lots.
Big chunk.
Imagine trying to defend a valuation on a startup retail company in 2008. It's like, geez. So I think we started off at about $7.5 million pre-money. And we raised 8. You can do the math. It's not an attractive business, from I just want to own a lot of this thing. It's really hard to do.
How many stores do you have?
Excuse me?
How many stores do you have today?
We have 100 stores across the United States. Just kidding. In 3 years. No wonder I have gray hair. No, we just have one, and the store's doing really well. So we've kind of got our eye on a few new markets right now. So
Maybe the traction isn't a bad thing though. Like, you got the money. That sometimes you get like mired in the traction. What if I'm just like
traction is a good thing.
Oh, I know.
Because
we all love traction. I'm
the,
just saying, like, you got the money anyway without the traction. So
well, I couldn't have traction if I mean, I could have had traction if I was like peddling some green paint down the road.
Why?
And I was like, hey, can I repaint your house? And I would have had some sales.
I'm gonna go for a second on this one, just because like, you're an investment banker who's like, let's start Home Depot for Whole Foods kind of thing, and
it's amazing.
I know, and I've been there. I love it. I'm not saying I don't, but I'm just like thinking. You had the idea, which everybody has an idea. You're like, I'm just gonna go make it happen. The traction be damned. Here's my traction. I got the guy from Home Depot to sell, to buy some of the company. So I don't know if I have a question as much as just like, maybe it wasn't maybe if you were like spending just like how much time in a day it takes to get traction versus how much time in a day you can spend raising money so you can go get a full day's worth of traction later on. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. There's only so many hours in the day, and
yeah, I hear you. I don't have a good answer for that, but I think like traction is really good. One of the worst things that we can do, guys, is like hide people on our amazing idea and blow in investors like money. That's just like terrible. And so if you don't have like a process to measure if you actually have a business that's investable or not, you're going to end up wasting a ton of money, and it's just going to pollute the ecosystem. So a lot of things I did were great, and this is one of those areas that I had to like that I wish I didn't have to like not have traction. Does that make sense? Yes. Yep, you.
Oh, awesome. So I'm fully aware how important the team is, especially when you're presenting to investors. And I guess I want to just ask your advice on how you build your team and things that you've learned throughout that process, and how it, I guess, affected your raise.
I mean, the team is incredibly important. That you've got like a fundable team. Y Combinator right now is doing their interviews this week, and they're basically only looking at teams. If someone walks in there as being a solo, awesome guy, they're just like, we're just not going to talk to you. So like team dynamics, that whole deal is like incredibly important. That honestly, that's a longer conversation. Maybe you and I can grab a beer sometime and talk about it. But building a team on some level is functional. It's like if you're the dev guy, someone that needs to sell it, or if you're the CEO and you're focused on a certain roles and responsibilities within your business, and there are a bunch of roles that are kind of unspoken for, that's the team that you need to build. So anyway, we can stop there, but that's a longer conversation. Yep.
Yeah, how different was your conversation when you were going to the founders of Home Depot and the convenience store versus going to the angels or the VCs?
I talked to a lot of angels, and again, I don't want to talk too much about Treehouse. This has been like 4 or 5 years ago, so I'd love to dive into your businesses, but hopefully looking over my shoulder is helpful in this regard. Hundreds of angels said no because they didn't have any social proof. Like, who's in the deal? Well, this tech investor's in the deal. It's home improvement. Yeah, but he's amazing, So the conversations were really short on the angel side. This is like going back to one of my points on knowing your targets. Within knowing your targets, there's going to be a subset of people that are actually going to be interested in your deal. Just focus on the people that actually know your space, which is easy because that takes like the 6,000 people that I have in the rich register and narrows it down to about 10 to 15. So I called up the founder of Best Buy, all the big retail companies that you've heard of, the Walton family members, for example. And I had my list of benevolent billionaires that I could just target, and a few said yes. The right one said yes. So Is that what you're asking? Okay. Yep.
So I mean, most would be maybe fearful for going after Home Depot to pitch to Home Depot of Whole Foods or vice versa.
Yeah.
What did that look like? How do you just said, you know, I've had it with trying to pitch all these people that are most likely not going to do it. When I give my idea to Home Depot, are you approaching him with like NDA stuff, or is it like, screw it, I need this money, my last option is?
Yeah, I don't think any investor is going to sign an NDA.
Well, I mean, going to somebody that's in your space, I mean, that's.
I understand.
Whole Food of Home Depot.
Yeah. So there's a risk there. If someone currently works at a competing company, please do not share your pitch deck with them. Just don't do it. If they formerly worked at a business that was a competitor, but now they work somewhere else, I think that's fair game. I think most investors are opportunistic. I talked to 5 Home Depot founders. 4 of them said, I've made a commitment to never invest in a competitor because Home Depot has been good to me. And I said, great, I respect that. One guy said yes. So you just never know. Yep. Nice tie. I don't see those very much in Austin.
How many rounds of fundraising did you do?
3. That's my shortest answer all night.
Thank you.
Yep.
When you went out and met with the investors, did you bring your core team with you, or did you go solo to the majority of those meetings?
Great question. This is interesting, guys, because some of you are nerdy, amazing, brilliant, savant level developers, and you may have a guy that is salesy and has maybe a higher emotional intelligence that might do better in a fundraising meeting. So it really just depends on your team. If being in front of people, if you're like high introvert and aren't that comfy talking on your feet in front of investors as like one of the co-founders, please don't pitch. Like, you need to be in the meeting because you're one of the guys that's building it, and you may get some zingers thrown your way, like questions, but have the person that can like connect a little bit better as one of maybe the leader in that pitch. I was just talking to a business that I was interviewing a few months ago, and they had this issue. He hired like the sales guy, so he wasn't even a co-founder, to go on a roadshow with the founder because the sales guy could connect, and the founder, you know, like pushed up the glasses, and he answered all the technical questions, but he wasn't the best guy to like lead the charge and give a presentation. So that's crucially important. If you're the founder, that doesn't mean you're supposed to be the one pitching. So, yep.
Do you have any metrics that you sort of tracked from meeting to meeting or over days?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, well, it's easy to track the funnel, just like any sales funnel. And so at the very top of my list, I had hundreds of investors that I either knew of or I wanted to get introduced to. And then from that, I paired them up with someone who could introduce me to them, or they were just kind of they were in no man's land. I didn't know anybody that knew them. From there, I would measure introductions. So lots of people, introductions from introductions, who would actually respond. So we're down to like 40% now. After my meeting with them, I would assess where they're at through reading their body language, asking them questions, and it would just get smaller and smaller. It's real easy to track. And I don't think it's really sophisticated. You don't need technology, you just need an Excel sheet. But like keep that up to date, and I think it'll really serve you well, because all the stuff at the top of the funnel, if people have said no, just who cares? Just focus on these 10 that are interested, you know? My I'm talking too much meter just went off. I hope I'm not boring you guys to death. Okay. Any last questions? You guys want to go grab a beer and talk about it? I know all of you have amazing ideas, so. Do you want to say anything, Derek?
Dude, you killed it, bro.
The Home Depot guy on the list that you showed us.
You want the list, don't you? I bet you're trying to hack into my computer right now. Look, here's the deal, guys. Everybody wants this list, and you can get it. I mean, yeah, take a picture of it. You can buy it. I mean, it's just not that big of a deal. But yeah, he's on there.
Okay, how did you get introduced to other investors? How did you find it?
I'm telling you. Okay, so I'm gonna let you into a little deal, and I'm kind of embarrassed that this is recorded. All right, so here's my analogy. If you want to become a good leader, don't read books on leadership. Read like classics. Okay, it'll make you a lot more creative. If you want to read books on fundraising, don't read books on fundraising. I just wrote a book on fundraising, so I'm eating my own junk here. Read books on spycraft. So it's more interesting that way. My favorite is Ghost Wars, written by Steve Cole. I was just telling Kane about this the other day. You gotta get creative, guys. I mean, you just play by the regular ball game, you're probably not gonna get the money you need. So just get creative. I don't need to elaborate too much on that. We got more questions. Oh crap. Yep.
I've got a slightly longer question. How much time did you actually spend on trying to get those meetings set up with investors, and how often, or what was it like for you in the time that you spent really not being able to get in a meeting with them? Was it a lot of failed attempts? You tried to email them multiple times. I mean, what was that like? It sounds like the way you talked was like you got in everywhere you tried.
That's because I didn't give you a relative timeline.
Yeah.
The time it took me.
That's what I'm curious about.
The time it took me to raise, like from when I said I'm going to raise money to when I closed was about a year. It's a long time. It was a full-time job. But like, there's no other way around that unless I just happened to stumble into like Warren Buffett on the subway or something. Yes.
Did you work with any of the local entrepreneurial networks, like WIN?
Who?
WIN, the Williams County Entrepreneur Network?
No, because I lived in DC at the time. So I was traveling to China, Bangalore, Maldives, just drinking Mai Tais on the beach, doing my thing. Just kidding. Yeah, I was based out of DC, so I wasn't aware of that organization. I'm sure it's great. Yes?
So, my question is, what is one of the biggest mistakes that you made during this whole process, and what did you learn from that mistake? Because I'm sure you made tons just like we all have. If you could just pick one that we could all kind of learn from.
The biggest mistakes at the very beginning, one of them I already mentioned, but I had a warped view of human nature on some level that I'm not real proud of, and pursued people like they were targets and like they were not humans. I mean, humans want to be treated like humans, and so I treated them just like investors that could help me on my journey. That was it. So like the biggest mistake that I made for the first few months was dishonoring people like Mo. God bless Mo. And seriously, if I hadn't learned from that moment of having the Hungarian Vizsla and all the other Rembrandts around, I probably wouldn't be standing here right now on some level. You just have to measure that. So most of my bloopers are people related. A lot of my issues came from I just didn't know the numbers a lot of times. So I just had a lot of tactical errors that I had to learn from. So anyway, yep.
So this is more of a specific question for my situation. I'm getting ready to go on the roadshow probably in about a month or two, hopefully. And I already have some meetings set up with billionaires, millionaire types. And I'm not sure whether or not I should be selling just my product, or are you also selling yourself? Because I already have success. I've sold a tech company already and created a whole disruptive new market, and I'm trying to do the same thing in an even larger market. And I'm not sure if that matters to an investor. It's probably,
of course, it matters.
Well, yeah. So that's generally my question is I know I'm selling my business model, but how much should I be selling myself as well as part of the equation and my history doing something like this?
It depends who you're talking to. If you're talking to angels are going to make 3 determinations when they're with you in person. The first one is if they like you. That's the game. If they don't like you, you can't move to stage 2. Stage 2 is, do I trust you? Do you sound reputable? Is your story legit? Did you actually sell the business that you just talked about? And do you actually think I'm a billionaire? I'm just kidding. So do I trust you? And then third is, do I want to do business with you? That's their framework. You can't break it. You can't go to funding without them liking you. That's ridiculous. Unless you're someone that is just highly offensive and maybe it's funny or something, but I don't know. I mean, that's the metric. So yeah, you are selling yourself. People's money's on you, man. I like you. I'm gonna put money on you. I believe in your vision, but I really like you, and so that's where my money's at. And I'll probably just tell you that I had a moment when we did not raise money and it was an epic failure, and I sent a letter off to my investors. I was like, look, I can't raise the rest of this. So it wasn't all merry, to answer your question earlier. And I had a couple of investors say, hey, we just got your email. Because you like are our friend, we're back in. You know what I mean? So it was all about people invested in the deal because they liked me primarily. And so I think the same is going to be true for you. But it's a huge help that you've already sold a company. It's awesome. Yep.
How much equity should you be giving up for a service, like an accountant or a lawyer? Like, would you recommend like a range of how much you should give up, like if you are short on cash?
Angel.co and some of like the pitching hacks people that have written a lot about that. What we did, and there's probably a lot better advice in the room than what we did, is we had 10% of our company for employees as an option pool. Out of that 10%, we carved out 1 to 3% for services folks. And if you use it all, great. If you don't, that's fine too. So that was kind of a metric. Less is better. Sometimes you can just say, look, I'm giving you 5,000 shares. They have no idea what the relative percentage is. I don't know. I'm not trying to like pull the wool over somebody, but sometimes if you just distribute shares, like they're happy to do that because they just like you and they want to see you succeed. And so it doesn't matter about the percentage, Yep. You again.
I was just going to mention on the pause after the ask, pregnant pause. There's a word for it. It's called the caesura, and it's kind of a classic sales and negotiation technique. When I first learned about it, I thought it was kind of funny, and I wanted to try to use it just for fun. So I negotiated a gym membership down from $60 a month to $16 a month by using that technique repeatedly within a single negotiation session.
Hopefully it doesn't work that way with investment. You like pause and they go from investing 100 down to like 15,000. That would really suck. You're like, no, I wouldn't. Whatever. That's cool. Sage, I just learned something new. That's cool. Thanks for sharing.
We have a saying in sales that he was big for us.
Really?
That's good.
That's a fortune cookie.
Yeah. I had no question, but I think you give a lot of advice here. I mean, if you can do what he said, I raise money 3 times and exactly people like you. If they don't like you, it doesn't matter how good you are. So you gentlemen to talk about selling yourself and the product, you need to be both. So I think I learned a lot from tonight from you, but I've been here a couple times and I really appreciate you share.
Yeah, you bet.
You share
That's awesome. You bet. Yeah, so I'm just trying to present a little bit more of a human dimension to this. A lot of times fundraising is presented in a way that isn't very human. So again, happy to share my email. It's evanloomis@gmail.com. If you guys have specific questions or just want to kind of talk about it, wherever you're in your venture, whether it's fundraising or building a team, there's nothing I love more in life than like dreaming alongside founders that have wonderful ideas. So it would bring me a lot of joy if you guys reached out. If you all email me, it'll probably be a while until I get back to you. But evanloomis@gmail. Any more? Yep.
You talked about how you dishonored Mo in his house and all this stuff. How specifically do you honor somebody? How do you walk the line between wasting someone's time with like idle stuff and building actual rapport? How do you against that?
Sorry, can you repeat the question a little bit different?
Sorry. Yeah. In building the personal relationship with an investor, where do you draw the line between sort of a frivolous chit chat and being an absolute hard charger on your deal?
You just take them where they want to go.
Okay.
I mean, if you're with me and I'm like, what's up? So I was with a very, very wealthy person in New York a few months ago. And I was coming in there to ask for money. And the person sat down at the table and said, you have 30 seconds. I'm going. I'm not going to say, oh, it was so nice that Bob introduced us. I'm so glad to be with you here today. I heard your wife Kathy's on another nonprofit board. That's great for Kathy. Like, please give her a high five for me. I just went for it. And that 30 seconds turned into an hour and a half. So you just go where they want to go. And that's why this like improv thing, like seriously, improv is amazing. You can just, if they want to go fast, if they want to slow down, if they just want to talk about one slide the whole time, if they want to talk about their favorite nonprofit or what they're doing in their life, figure out a way to help them. But if you set up the meeting with them, they know what the terms are. The terms are, we are sitting down because I'm an entrepreneur and you're an investor, and we're going to talk about the deal. That's where you start off. Where you go from there is can be all over the place. And so just hold it loosely and don't get frustrated if the person waxes poetic about something. I had one meeting where the guy berated me for an hour on how he thought the environmentalists, green tech, clean tech was like a conspiracy. But I just sat there the whole time and I was like, you know what, I agree a lot with you on that. I think it's too bad that environmentalists haven't presented their ideas in a way that's compelling to people who don't believe in that political ideology. But that's not what we're about. We're just trying to help save people money, build healthier homes, and live sustainably. What's not to love, dude? And he was like, okay, I'm in for 100. And I was like, my jaw was on the floor. It's like, seriously? So just go where they want to go and make a friend. Cool. Are we good? All right, this was fun. Thanks, guys.